Good evening, SICW wrestling fans, and Happy New Year. Herb, here we are, Sunday, January 1st, 2023.
Already starting off the new year, and I'm telling you, I'm really excited about it. And the SICW fans have been getting a lot of calls, just bragging and raving about 2022. And I said, well, if you thought that was something, just wait for 2023.
I don't think you can do better than you did in 2022. I think that's a challenge that you're probably up to trying to conquer.
Well, you know, the SICW fans, as we said for all these years now, are the greatest, and they were happy, so if they're happy, I'm tickled to death. And you know, we've got a lot planned for 2023, but you know, before we, even though it's today starting off, you know, it was a good idea you come up with to have a little review of what we all did in 2022.
Well, and Herb, for the next hour, we got a bunch of things we're going to talk about, and we're going to run through a lot of stuff really quick, but I think it's good to give the fans a kind of a recap of just what SICW did in 2022, because I guarantee 2023 is going to be as busy, if not more.
It sure seems like it, the way things are falling into place.
So Herb, every month you publish a poster. And it kind of has become a collector's item for some of the guys, and they really like it each month if they see they're on the poster. And where'd that idea come from?
Well, we've done that for many years now. Way back, soon to be 50 years, as we keep saying. You know, in fact, next month it'll be 50 years. But you know, Larry Matisek and I always had posters that we would have printed up, and we would take them around, and the good businesses in our area would display them and their businesses and help promote it. And it was something that we've just done over the years. And you're right, I do have a large collection of them, and we continue to do that today. And you know, our good friends over the last many years, Gray Eagle Distributing, used to be Anheuser-Busch in Belleville, Illinois, helps us print them. And I can't say enough about Matt Brown, the salesman. That's why you see the little Anheuser-Busch logo on them. And the good thing about that is, you know, back in the Wrestling at the Chase, when it started, they were one of the key sponsors of Wrestling at the Chase, Anheuser-Busch, Busch Bavarian Beer. And so it's kind of neat that as we keep that history of Wrestling at the Chase alive, here one of their main sponsors is still helping us out here.
And that Busch logo is still on every one of those posters every month.
Every month, it's on there. All you got to do is look at it.
Herb, when you talk about the posters, and we just saw some great ones from the year, but one that comes to mind that didn't have that Busch logo on it was a big event that raised a lot of money back in February when we did a memorial for Chief Al LaPointe from the French Village Fire Department.
Well, you know, what a great cause. And you know, we send our well wishes out to the chief all the time, and I understand he's doing better. But that was a show that it brought first responders together from all over, not only here in St. Clair County, but even over into Missouri, to help out somebody who was well in need of it. You know, Chief LaPointe has been a pillar in the community and the fire industry. And boy, when the word got out that he was having some medical issues, his support team just came together, and it was great that we were able to pull everybody together and help out. And it was for a great cause. And I mean, like I said, that's what it's all about. That's what we've been doing all these years.
Well, absolutely. And the weather was a little rough on us. We were just coming out of COVID, so crowds were a concern. And even with all of that, we made it work. The outside was supposed to have a Touch a Truck event. Couldn't have it. But what did you come up with? We pulled full-size fire trucks into the fairgrounds, and they were sitting there ringside.
Oh, yeah.
You talk about lights for the wrestlers coming out. You know, usually there's spotlights, and sometimes there's smoke. And this time they had the red and blue lights of fire trucks all surrounding the entrance to come from the locker room.
Well, and I think the great thing about that whole show that night was the chief's wife and family was able to be there with us, but he was also able to be there with us via video. And boy, he was a trooper. You know, we had him hooked up, synced up, and linked up, and he got to watch the show, and you know, people hollering and, you know, telling him get well, and it was just an all-around great night for a great cause.
Absolutely. Well, and Herb, you know, 2022 was a busy year, and when people think about SICW, you have a house show every month, right in the East Carondelet Community Center. Sunday, you follow that with TV taping where the fans get to come back. But that's not everything you do. You do other fundraiser events like you did for Chief Alva Point. But back in March, you tagged up with ACW and kind of went on the road a little bit.
Well, that's years ago. Wrestling was about territories, and that's what we have been trying to do all these years: is work with other organizations that want to be worked with. And our good friends at ACW, Searcher, Pat, great guy, great friend. It's people like him, Scotty Z from New Breed Wrestling in southern Missouri. When you have individuals like that share that same passion that SICW does, it makes it a lot easier. It makes it good for the fans. It makes it good for the wrestlers. They get to travel a little bit. It was like our friend Bert Prentice, all the years I knew him down in Tennessee and got to work with him. Those were individuals that understood what the business really meant and what it was to exchange talent. And it's something I think is a lost art now in our business. But yeah, I can't say enough for the guys from ACW, New Breed Wrestling, our good friend Troy Peterson up at Impact Pro Wrestling. It's just if people want to work and work together, it benefits everybody.
Well, and we saw a lot of that in 2022 where guys from other promotions were coming. SICW talent was getting to go work in other promotions and really just working together in that cohesiveness. And I think 2023 is going to bring a lot more of that.
Well, I think so. And of course, my good friend, the Space Cowboy, Jason Jones, down in the Arkansas area in southern Missouri. He's on a streak right now. I think there in Springfield, Missouri, he's had 14 sellout crowds, and we were fortunate to be down with him a couple of weeks ago. And the mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart was there. But the Space Cowboy, the hardest working man in the business, as he likes to be called, and I can see why, because he really puts on a great show. But he's another one of those individuals that wants to work together. I mean, he's been up here. He's brought some of his talent up here. We've sent some of ours down there. And again, like I said, that's another one of those ingredients that if you put them together, that nice cake's going to rise, or that bread, whatever you're making, and it's going to be beneficial for the workers and for the fans in those areas.
Absolutely. Well, Herb, we've talked about just a little bit of action from the first quarter of 2022, and we're going to have to take a quick commercial break. But before we head into that commercial break, there's a big show coming up here in the very beginning part of 2023, and that's January 14th.
January 14th, big show. I mean, Kevin Sullivan, one of the great wrestling legends, is going to be joining us again. We're making a return, but this time he's not coming by himself. He's bringing the new Purple Haze, Andrew Anderson, with him. And for some reason, I'm still baffled over it. They've got an axe to grind with Flash Flanagan. And, Flash is no stranger to the SICW fans or to any wrestling fans. And I'm telling you, I'm kind of concerned about this one because Kevin Sullivan and Andrew Anderson, they're forces to be dealt with. But then a six-man tag elimination match. We'll talk about that a little bit. When you have the likes of Devastation Incorporated, the classic champion, Attila Khan, the guy that takes no prisoners, and then you throw Chief Sheik Jake Prater in there, along with the big man, Peyton Ayers.
Yeah.
That's a big...
That's a lot of meat in the ring.
A lot of meat in the ring, and of course on the other side, when you talk about a lot of meat, the big Texan,
who was
that close.
That close.
Right, but of course the Night Train, Gary Jackson, the guy that just keeps on going. He's that he never stops. And then of course the Central States champion Bobby D will be on their side, and he's the winner of that Bruiser Brody Battle Royal last year. And so it's a six-man tag elimination. Anything can go, but there will be a lot of other great matches. And that's Saturday night, January 14th, our first show of 2023.
All right, fans, we're going to take a quick commercial break, hear from some of our sponsors, and we'll be right back with you. Wrestling superstar Bobby D now has his own line of apparel and his own online wrestling merchandise store. Visit www.bobbydwrestling.com for all of the great wrestling memorabilia from Belleville's own Bobby D. Wrestling fans, are you looking for those vintage toys? Those hard to find 70s, 80s, and 90s action figures? G.I. Joe, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Star Wars, Transformers. Look no further than Snyder Toys. They will have what you're looking for. Give Robert Snyder a call at 618-314-3266 for all your vintage toy needs. Herb, we'd be nowhere without our sponsors, so we always got to make sure we get them in there.
Always. I mean, like I said, without them, the fans, and the great talent, we wouldn't be sitting here talking about it.
Absolutely. When we talk about SICW on the road, let's go back on the road in 2022 again. You took a trip back to Holy Family.
Man, oh man, you talk about an organization that is really knows how to go out and put it together. Our good friend Ishii, they just did a bang-up job again. The priest, everybody there, the membership was a great night. Everybody had a great time, and it's always good to another fundraiser that you can come out and help a church organization like that, because that money is going to a great cause, and hopefully we'll be going back to Holy Family in 2023.
Absolutely. Always a great crowd there, very energetic, very excited, and they always have a good time when SICW heads down to Holy Family in Cokia. So Herb, let's head into May. And May is always a big month for SICW. What was the Bruiser Brody Memorial Show has become the Bruiser Brody, Larry Matisick, Tony Costa Memorial. And we got a lot to talk about from last year's May event of SICW Wrestling.
A lot, and of course we can't do that without our good friend Barbara Goodish, the widow of the late great King Kong Bruiser Brody, my dear friend. Every year she clears her schedule to come in here to SICW because several years ago I made the pledge to her that as long as I was able to, that Bruiser Brody will be remembered, and I think we're doing that to the best that we can. And every May we do the Bruiser Brody Memorial with the Bruiser Brody Battle Royal, and that's where Bobby D won that cup, and Barbara Goodish is always here to present that winner of that Battle Royal with that beautiful trophy. We had some special guests with us in 2023. Joyce Grable joined us. And
received an induction.
It received, yes, and she was surprised about that into the Wrestling Hall of Fame, St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame, that Larry Matisick and myself and a few others started, and we're so proud of that because when you talk about Hall of Fames, that is a true Hall of Fame that if your name has been inducted into there, or you have been, that it means something, because it's not made up of limousine drivers and movie stars and all of that. These are legit men and women who for many years brought us entertainment through wrestling at the Chase.
Absolutely. And there was a special award that was given that night for what's going to become an annual award, is my understanding. But you gave the first recipient of the Sam Muchnick Award.
Sam Muchnick Award, and again, Nick Rednar, another member of our Hall of Fame committee, him and I talked, and how appropriate Barbara Goodish every year, as I said, helps us out and comes in, and so we bestowed upon her the honor of the first Sam Muchnick Award, because she got to meet Mr. Muchnick on a couple occasions, but she allowed her husband to come into St. Louis whenever they needed him, and we just thought it was fitting that we honor her by giving her that award.
I've always heard a story about, you're the one that's told me about it, that Bruiser Brody was trying to wrestle while she was in labor.
Yep. In fact, he made the trip in, and they had got word here in St. Louis, Larry and he had told Sam that Barbara was at the hospital getting ready to go into labor, and when Brody showed up for the show, Sam asked him, "What are you doing here? Don't you know your wife's having a baby?" And he said, "Yeah, but we got a show." And Sam told him, he said, you get an airplane and get back home. And Barbara tells that story all the time.
So what a great recipient of that first Sam Muchnick Award.
Exactly, very deserving of it. And then we had somebody else with us that night.
I was just getting ready to say, you're not done with visitors from that show.
No, that was a great show, and then of course, you know, the Dirty Dutch Mantel. What a character he was. Great guy, great worker, great mind for the business. Been all over the world with his career, but took time out of his busy schedule. The minute I contacted him and told him what we were doing with the Bruiser Brody Memorial, he didn't hesitate to show up, because he had a special a place in his heart for Bruiser Brody, and he wanted to be a part of that. And he came in and made some fans at SICW very happy.
Absolutely. And now you kind of gave it away a little bit earlier, but let's talk about the winner of that prestigious Bruiser Brody Cup, a man who has been on a pretty much undefeated streak here since he won that cup, Bobby D.
Man, I'll tell you, I don't know if there's something in that trophy cup or what that has just stirred him. As you said, what a winning streak he's had, and he was another one that came real close.
And he carries it with pride
Yes,
to that ring every time. No one has respected that cup more than what Bobby D shows.
Well, I've heard him and the Big Texan have a podcast going on now each week, and you know, I hear him on there talk about it, and you know, he is very proud of not only that Bruiser Brody trophy, but you know, he's the Central States champion, and a Central States title is a very prestigious title also.
I was very happy to see him take that away from Kowalski and, more importantly, Lucky P. Larson.
Yeah, well, Esquire, don't forget the Esquire.
But you know, it's nice that this week we get to have a show, and no Lucky.
No Lucky. Boy, we are lucky. You see what I did there? No, but Bobby D is on a winning streak, and he is so proud to have won that trophy. And he gets out there and he parades it around, and rightly so. I mean, Bruiser Brody was the real deal, and especially in the St. Louis area, and he did so much for SICW. I will forever, ever be indebted to him and the likes of Sam and Larry.
Absolutely. Well, Herb, when we talk about something as prestigious as the Bruiser Brody Memorial every year, what better than to segue right in here to June 4th and the great debut of the PBS movie Head Over Heels.
Yeah, what an honor that was. And, you know, quickly I'll tell you, you know, Larry had always had the thought of, one, doing a coffee table book, which got done through Ed Wheatley, our good friend, the author. So we did that Wrestling at the Chase book. And but Larry always thought it would be great to have some type of movie or program or documentary about St. Louis wrestling. And lo and behold, talking with Ed about that, he decided that, you know, he's did some movies or documentaries on baseball, and so he took this chore on, and man, I'll tell you, what an honor it was to be part of that. And I mean, it turned out a lot better than I even could ever anticipate.
Well, and what a night it was, sitting out there on the patio next to the PBS building, a giant movie screen on the side of the building, and in the background, the wrestling ring.
Yeah, it was really neat, and you know, a lot of the workers showed up for it, and a lot of the VIPs from the St. Louis area, and you know, Ed Wheatley done his homework not only on the book but on this film. I mean, he interviewed some of the fans and people who, like all of us, grew up on Wrestling at the Chase. You know, that's one of the questions I get asked all the time if I'm doing interviews is, how did I become involved in the wrestling? And I tell them, well, just like you did as a fan. But then they hear the stories. We had the portable St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame set up there that night, and people coming up and saying, oh, there's Johnny Valentine, oh, there's Gene Kaniski, you know, oh, there's Ric Flair, you know, there's Bruiser Brody's plaque. And then one story leads into another. And it's just great to see the smiles on the fans' faces when they talk about, I remember Mom and Dad and Grandma and Grandpa sitting there beating on the arm of the chairs when Dick the Bruiser was beating up some so-and-so. And so it's a household, you know, Ed used to say those 4 words, you know, Wrestling at the Chase. You mentioned that, and it just brings back memories.
Well, Herb, it's time for us to squeeze in another quick commercial break. Fans, we thank you for being here with us on this New Year's Day of 2023. Let's hear from a few more of our sponsors. Tune in every Sunday night right after SICW All-Star Wrestling for the Falls Count Everywhere podcast, streaming live at 9 p.m. Central Time on Facebook and YouTube. Join your hosts, the Gym City Mouth, Z-Miz, and ring veteran Rough Cut Rick Ruby as they bring you notable backstage news from the wrestling world, promoting upcoming wrestling shows from other companies around multiple local regions, and an in-depth interview with a featured guest in the professional wrestling industry every week. Follow, like, and subscribe to Falls Count Everywhere on Facebook and YouTube, also available on Twitter at the FCE Podcast. Wrestling fans, on Saturday, March 25th, WWE legends Mr. USA Tony Atlas and Cowboy Bob Orton Jr. will be in action at the Ionide Temple in East St. Louis as they join the Shriners in sponsoring their fundraiser. SICW is honored to team up with the Shriners to raise funds for all their great programs. Stay tuned for more information and how to purchase tickets to this great event being planned by the Shriners. That's Saturday, March 25th, 2023 at the beautiful Shriners Temple. Fans, welcome back as we are sitting here New Year's Day 2023 talking about what a great year 2022 was in SICW, and it brought some new wrestlers to the environment. And Herb, one that became noticed pretty quickly was astonishing Austin Mulitalo.
Man, Austin, woo! If this young man, he's had a couple of injuries, had a young career here already, but I've talked with him and I've told him, if you stay healthy, this young man, you're going to see him on bigger stages, I can tell you. He's well liked by the fans. He's got some moves out there that takes me back to the days of the Red Bastines of the world and people like that he can get in there.
Red Bastine, I think you got an award.
Well, I'm kind of partial Red Bastine, the CAC award, a friendship award. But I can just tell you that if Austin stays healthy and continues to stay focused, believe me, just mark it down. You're going to see things out of that young man.
Absolutely. Well, Herb, late July, you took a trip that you take every year, but met some people that might be visiting SICW coming up. You went back to Waterloo, Iowa.
Oh yeah, Waterloo, Iowa. We talked about our, working with another organization, Troy Peterson up at Impact Pro Wrestling. Great group of individuals, him and his wife and James Jeffries. I mean, that whole that whole group up there makes you feel like part of their family when you get there. And every year at the Waterloo, Iowa, at the Fez Tragus Hall of Fame, if you haven't put that on your bucket list, you need to get up to Waterloo, Iowa, because it's a great time. The museum up there, Lou Thez's wife, Charlie Thez, is there, but they bring in a lot of the legends for a fan fest. They have a wrestling event. Our good friend Jerry Briscoe, who we'll talk about here in a few moments, is always there. But last year I got to catch up with an old friend that came in and worked for me several times, and that was Nard the Barbarian, John Nard. And it was kind of ironic. I didn't even know he was scheduled to be there. When I got there, people were talking about him, and I said, man, I've talked to him a couple times over the last several years, trying to hook him up to get him to come in for one of the Bruiser Brody memorials, and I just couldn't get the schedule done. And when they told me he was there, he was they have this at the Sullivan Convention Center in Waterloo, Iowa, and he was over in the corner of the big auditorium, and somebody told me that's where he had his table set up at, and so I go walking over there, and when I got over in that area, it was kind of like our eyes kind of hooked together, and I walked up to him, and I said, shook his hand, and I said, I bet you don't remember me. And he stands there and he looks me up and he says, a match on a football field and it rained. And sure enough, the last time I'd had him in was him against Bruiser Brody at the Dupo High School on the football field. And sure enough, it rained. And in fact, I still have copies of that tape. And but it was just amazing. It was back in 1987. But he remembered that, and so it was good to talk to John, and of course Barbara Goodish was there. She came up. They had never met before, so they got to meet, and of course, for a long time, John Nord and Bruiser Brody fought all over the place, and so it was great seeing him, and I think we're going to be seeing him here in the near future.
Absolutely, great things to come. And when we talk about legends like John Nord and some of the other guys, another legend that you brought in August this year, the Wildfire, Tommy Rich.
Oh man, yeah, I know where they get the name at. Wildfire, Tommy Rich. He, great guy. It was good having him in. He came in and done that seminar that afternoon before the show. Those who signed up for the seminar just loved it because, he's old school and old country boy, but one of the toughest out there. Treated everybody good with respect, taught them some things. These young men and women that signed up for that seminar, and he got involved in the action a little bit that night. But that's how Tommy is. Like he says, once you get in this business, you're always in this business.
Never know what you're going to find at an SICW wrestling match.
Never know, and to have the likes of the Wildfire come in and see the fans of SICW, it was another one for the books.
Absolutely. Well, Herb, we talk about SICW on the road. You talked about going to a football field and it raining. Well, this year you didn't go to a football field, but you tried to go to a baseball field and it rained, so they had to have a makeup. So I mean, I'm seeing a pattern here.
Yeah.
But then you got a great night under the stars at the Grizzly Stadium.
Yeah. Oh, our good friends at the Gateway Grizzlies. It's always fun to team up with them and bring not only the wrestling fans a great show, but the baseball fans. And when you combine the Grizzlies and SICW together, you can bet it's always a great time. And they got such a great stadium there. We set it up outside on the concourse. You're right, we got rained out the first time, and of course, if you remember, we talked about Bobby D out supporting, taking that trophy cup. He done some promos from outside there.
Yes, he did.
And really promoting it up. But
I like to think I had something to do with the rain out. I was out of town and was going to miss the original date, so I think it was just my rain dance helped, and
there you go.
I got to get back in town and see the.
Got to get back and see it, but no, we always look forward to working with the Gateway Grizzlies, and if you haven't checked out a ball game with them, you need to do that, and especially if we team back up with them this year, we'll let you know, and because it's always a great time.
Well, Herb, we talk about firsts with SICW. You had a first this year as well, and that was the first time you've ever wrestled inside a history museum.
Oh man, what a beautiful night that was! Great crowd. It was great. Ed Wheatley helped put that all together for us. We had they were there with the book, but just the atmosphere of that museum, on stage, theater seating. Man, we could go back there every month. I think the workers loved it, and the fans that were there just loved it. I'm not sure if Sean Vincent liked what Big Texan did to him a couple different times in that match, but yeah, it was the first time being there, and I was glad to be a part of that. SICW put that on their list of being the first ever to do a wrestling match at the museum.
Yep. And Herb, last year, 2021, you brought in an NWA champion to defend that NWA title here in SICW, and drew a great crowd, and everybody thought, boy, we can't top this. Here it is, 2022, and you brought in another NWA superstar, and that was Nick Aldis.
Yeah, you're one of the ones who keep saying, how are you going to top this?
Well, as we sit here and talk about it, it's just growing.
Yeah, but Nick, another one of those top talent workers out there, and we needed somebody to come in and battle the most devious individual I think that's in the business, and that's a Telecon. And I'm telling you, what a match Nick Aldis gave a Telecon.
Oh boy!
It was back and forth. Again, just when you think it was going to be the turn of it, something happens.
It was two different styles of wrestling. Nick Aldis, more of a technical wrestler.
Scientific.
Attila Khan, more of a brawler.
Yeah.
And Aldis had to brawl, and Attila had to put some technique.
Well, that's what I was going to say. when you talk about brawling, Nick showed in that match right there, pound for pound, he'll stand with the toughest, and I think he showed Attila Khan that I may come out here and be able to do the arm drags and the reversals and all that, but if you want to battle, if you want to go to war, I'll go to war with you. And I mean, I'd book that match again with no problem at all, because the fans were sitting on the edge of their seats, or they were standing on their seats.
Mm-hmm. It was a great night, and Herb.
I got to say, it's probably one of the great. It would be one of the top 5 matches that I think I've put on.
I can't disagree with that, but I feel like we've had so many top 5 matches. Just talking about them tonight, I mean, every match in SICW is a main event.
Yeah, Bobby D against Attila Khan, you know, Texan against Attila Khan, and Gary Jackson. You know, they're all great matches, but there was just
I'm going to
something.
throw 2 other names at you, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but for a crowd pop, how about the ambassador match this year? Sean Vincent versus the newcomer.
That great match.
Brandon Beretta.
Well, and Brandon, you know, a graduate of the Ace Wrestling Academy. What a fine young man he is. I'm proud to say my new ambassador of SICW.
No man more deserving.
No man. I mean, this young man, again, stay healthy, stay focused, and the sky is the limit. And he proved that. Sean Vincent got a couple of notches taken out of him that night. Mm-hmm. And so did his goon, as we call him, the intern.
The intern.
Yeah, but Brandon has a lot to be proud of, and I'm so happy that he will be out there as the representing SICW as the face of the company that will go out there and represent us in a good way.
Well, and Herb, one of the finest stages you go back to and go back to and go back to, where it's great to have a good ambassador there to represent your company, is the Missouri Athletic Club. And 2022 was no different. SICW returned.
Oh, when you talk about the closest setting to the wrestling at the Chase, it's got to be the Missouri Athletic Club. You've been there.
I've been there.
2 years in a row now. The whole atmosphere, the camera shots from the balcony, the members of that organization in there dressed to the nines, just like they were back in the days of wrestling at the Chase. If you haven't seen any of that footage, it will just take you back, and it's a stage then that the talent goes out there. The bar has been raised.
Absolutely.
Everybody wants to outdo the other one, and you know, you get a guy like the Night Train Gary Jackson that says, "Hey, I'll be the curtain jerker because I get to go out there and set the bar, and everybody's got to try to outdo me." And everybody that was on that card just went out there and shined that night, and it paid off, because those members of that organization, they were all come up. Hey, can we get you back here every month? You know, this is great.
Yeah, they didn't want to talk next year. They said, "Hey, can you come back next month?"
So we yeah, and if they call us, you know, this month or this year, we'll be more than glad to help them. Jim Wilson, the director of entertainment there, great guy to work with, and of course, you know, we had some guys there.
I say you, it wasn't just SICW talent. You brought a few legends with you.
Yeah, who do we all have there?
Well, you had a king.
Yeah, just a king, Jerry Lawler, the king. You know.
You had a sergeant.
Yeah, well, he made me what, a 10-star general,
a 6-star
general. Sergeant Slaughter joined us there.
And you had a mouth of the South.
Yeah, oh yeah, and my good friend Jimmy Hart, who I can't say enough about Jimmy. He, you know, for those of you who don't know, or maybe not old enough to know, there was a band called the Gentrys back in the day, and our good friend Jimmy Hart was a part of that, and the song "Keep on Dancing," and that's what he does.
And he had that crowd dancing that night.
He had them dancing, and then of course the Ace Cowboy Bob Orton Jr., who is a big part of SICW, runs the Ace Wrestling Academy for us, trained the likes of a Brandon Beretta and people like that.
Wrestled a match this year with Brandon Beretta.
Yes, he did.
You know, him and Brandon, you know, after that Brandon got attacked, they had matching casts of that match.
Yeah, isn't it ironic how, you know, I keep asking Bob, when's that arm going to heal? You know, and he keeps telling me, when the people leave me alone.
Yep, it's
So,
amazing. And Herb, let's keep on moving down the road. SICW this year went to Sandoval, Illinois.
what another great show. Our good friend Bill Henson, a counselor there at the school, a gentleman wanting to help out the school district. Great show, great crowd. That match that night between Bobby D and Kowalski, they were all over the gymnasium floor. They were up in the bleachers. I mean, it was a wild night, and I can't thank Bill and the school district there in Sandoval, Illinois. Raised them some money. They needed some new uniforms for their students and for their athletic department, and we're looking forward to going back there this year.
Absolutely. And you talk about fundraisers, a place that always looks back to SICW and says, time for another fundraiser. SICW went back to Fairmont City, Illinois to help the police and fire departments.
Wow, yeah, you're just full of it tonight. Everything we've done, but that's another great night. I mean, a packed Holy Rosary Gymnasium. Can't say enough about the fire chief, Bobby Allen, Chief Brown, the police chief. They worked together. Two groups of our first responders for a great cause. Went out there and did it for their community, and it paid off because there was standing room only.
And SICW was able to bring them, by request, a luchador match.
Had a luchador match there, and they loved that. I mean, it's always a good time when we go to Fairmont City, and hopefully they'll call us here in 2023, and if so, we'll go back and help them again.
Absolutely. Fans, we've been talking about the greatness of SICW through 2022. We're 3/4 of the way through. It's time to take another quick commercial break to hear from some of our great SICW sponsors, and we'll be back with you to tell you how SICW closed out the last quarter of 2022. Wrestling fans, don't miss your chance to meet TikTok sensation that's sweeping across the country, those crazy hillbillies. They'll be making their appearance at the East Carondelet Community Center on Saturday, March 11th, 2023. Make plans to come out and meet them as they team up with SICW, the crazy hillbillies. Take a look at them on TikTok. Wrestling fans, SICW Wrestling has been providing fundraising opportunities for several decades for local communities and nonprofit organizations. If your community or organization is in need of a great fundraising opportunity, SICW Professional Wrestling is the way to go. For more information or to schedule an event, call 618-286-4848 or 618-719-1034. We'll bring the matches to you. Fans, welcome back. We've been talking about all the greatness in 2022 and something that's near and dear to your heart, and I've been privileged enough to go with you now several years, and SICW had quite the turnout this year, and that was Cauliflower Alley's annual reunion.
Well, it's no secret. I love Cauliflower Alley. It's an organization that was formed many years ago at 50, going to be soon to be
57, 58 years, yeah.
Great time. President, you may know him by one of the Killer Bees, B. Brian Blair, does a fantastic job. His board of directors. It's an organization that helps the men and women that's been in the business if they need assistance, if they fall on hard times, and believe me, that happens more than any of you probably know. This business is a rough business, and back in the day, there was these workers, wrestlers didn't have health insurance, and so this organization got started 57 years ago, and it's still going strong. And so it's one of the organizations that I support 110%. I promote it every day. In fact, I've kind of earned the title of the ambassador of the CAC. My good friend Carl Lauer, who was president for many years of it, when he passed away, Brian Blair and the executive board asked if I would kind of fill in and help carry on what Carl used to do of helping promote it, and that's what I do. And I talk with, and I'm honored to talk with people all around the country, all over. I mean, I get calls from up in Canada and all over, people who belong. and just wanting to know how they can help out the Cauliflower Alley. And I encourage any of you out there, whether you're a worker or not, you can be a fan and join. $25 a year, you become a member. $300 a year, you become a lifetime member. You get four, what they call the year, little magazine comes out 4 times a year with the information on it. But then every year we have the reunion in Las Vegas, and I mean, you were there this year and saw all the legends that was there. Rey Mysterio, Conan, JBL,
Yep.
People like that that you're sitting there eating dinner with, or you're walking through the casino or through the hotel lobby. And what I really like about it is they're not walking around with their nose up in the air.
Nope.
They're there paying respect to you, the fans, because they'll tell you without the fans, they wouldn't be where they are today. So I really encourage you, if you got $25, become a member for a year and then put it on your bucket list. Try to make it out there. This year it's going to be the last of August, and we'll have a lot more information being posted up on our sites. Our good friend Darla Staggs is on the executive board, and she does a tremendous job, and Rich Engelane and Ron Hutchinson and people like that that are just out there helping the men and women in this business that need help, and we're going to continue to do that.
Absolutely. And Herb, when we talk about good times and great events, SICW went back to the Belle Claire Fairgrounds for the annual fundraiser, and it was a night to remember.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about Belle Claire Fairgrounds, Larry Matt, I started there before Larry and I actually got together. We were friends, but I was doing the shows, and Larry would come to those shows when we were doing them back in the late 70s and into the 80s. And that was one of the first places we brought Bruiser Brody, and then we brought people like Dick Murdoch, Jerry Blackwell, Tojo Yamamoto, Gypsy Joe, Frank Morrell. A lot of the guys from the Nashville area would come there, and of course all of our local talents. That Belleville has always kind of been a home base for us, and we did that show back there again in another capacity crowd. The year before we did the Spooktacular.
The Halloween Spooktacular.
And we had, I think 11 or so legends.
And this year we didn't have as many legends, but the crowd was still into it. Great crowd. And it started with a great wrestling seminar by Dan the Beast Severin.
Well, when you talk about somebody who can give a wrestling seminar, Dan's right there at the top. And I mean, the workers that showed up that day sit there, and it was funny. They were all sitting around the table on the outside of the ring. They must have sat there for 30, 45 minutes and just talking and picking their brain. And I found out from Dan later on what he was doing is he was kind of evaluating each of them as he was talking to them and asking them questions. And it wasn't shortly after that he got them up in the ring and then started showing them, because his background is, MMA and amateur. He really loves the amateur side of it. But again, the professional side of it, he can get in there and do it too. And so I was really glad that we was able to get Dan to come in and do that seminar.
And with him, Dennis Condrey.
What a great guy. And Dennis and I talk all the time, and he was so happy to come to SICW return and see the fans, because some of these guys may be here this year, but they don't come back for several years or a long time, and things change, fans change. The one thing that SICW is known for is consistency. We're going to give the fans the best we can, and because we want them to continue to come back. We want them to, when they think about professional wrestling, we want them to think about 2 things. One, wrestling at the Chase, because that's something that's really close to my heart. Always has been, because of Sam Muchnick, the late great promoter, Larry Matisek, people like Bruiser Brody, Dick the Bruiser. But then I want them to think about SICW, and that's what they're doing.
And they do, Urban. Let's talk about the main event, because the main event that night featured 2 legends. 2 legends that came in to take on a tag team you talked about a little earlier that's part of a 6-man tag coming up later on this month in Devastation Incorporated. And those men were none other than the Faces of Fear.
Well, the faces, we had to get somebody to come in because when you have a team such as a Telecon, as I said, probably the most meanest, toughest individual out there. I had to get somebody that is just as mean and tough as he is, and by far Haku. And then he brings his friend along, the Barbarian, and of course Sheik Jake Prater. Of course, the big problem was a guy named Stephen E. And that's a guy that I think went to the Skandar Akbar School
Oh yeah.
of managing. He knows every dirty trick in the book, and he has quickly been coming a thorn in the side. You and I had talked, and we talk all the time, and we thought that when Travis Cook ran out of SICW that things would kind of calm down.
I thought we were going to get through this whole show without even mentioning the main event of 2022, and that was the farewell of Travis Cook.
But again, you got to give the devil his dues.
Yeah, you're right.
But we thought that when he ran out, that things would get back to a little bit of sense of normal. But then all of a sudden, we get rid of him. But then we show up with a guy like Stephen E.
Whew.
that shows up, and then another guy shows up, this Lucky P. Larson Esquire. So now, I mean, did we trade the devil for the devil?
For a double devil?
Devil? I don't know what we did, but
Well, and that match we were talking about, that should have been inside a steel cage, but it took everything the referees had to get him in there.
get him in there. It started between the locker room and the cage, and I mean, before they even got to the cage, they went through a table. And I mean, then the referees finally got him in the steel cage, and it just broke down from there. But Haku, the Faces of Fear, two great wrestling legends, and like I said, you can't take nothing away from a Telecon or Sheik Prater. It was a war.
It was an all-out war, and leaves a challenge to you of how can you do better in 2023.
Well, we talk about that all the time. It's not easy sometimes, and some people think that they can wake up and be a wrestler. They think they can wake up and be a referee or a manager or a promoter. Mm-hmm. And I can tell them that, when you go out there to promote something like this, professional wrestling, if you want to do it, to give the fans the best product, it takes a little work. It takes good people to be in your corner, basically. You got to know how to treat people. You got to know how to treat the fans. And I think at SICW, I'm very fortunate. I've got a family that supports my passion. I couldn't do it without my lovely wife, my daughter, who we call our event coordinator.
Yep.
And
she keeps them riled up at the TV tapings.
Yes, she does. Her and her rubber chicken. And but my sons. But then my sister. So it's a family affair that I grew up on the wrestling. My mother and I. My mother was my best friend, of course. My mother. We watched wrestling at the Chase all the time, and so. And I think about her each and every day, and every time I'm sitting there watching these matches from the tapes that we do, I can see her sitting there hollering at Baron von Raschke or, Johnny Valentine, and I'm thinking, if Mom was still here, she'd still be sitting there raising heck with my daughter, and that's what it's about. It's about coming out having fun. And that's what we want. We want the fans to know when they leave there that they were entertained for a couple hours. And I've always said you got to come back to reality. But for those 2.5 hours, we're going to take you to land make believe, basically.
And you talk about another great place that we go to. I've been there now a couple times. SICW went back to Belleville, to the Little Devils, the home of Bobby D.
Man.
And you talk about a family environment.
Was there any doubt on who the favorite was there that night?
Ooh. When you started talking family, I knew we had to talk about when we went to the Little Devils, because that was Bobby D's family in that house.
Yeah, well, and another great cause, helping them raise funds there, and I want to thank Bobby D and his group of coaches that take time and work with those young adults, those young children, in their, whether it's their amateur wrestling or whether it's football or whatever it may be. They're up there coaching them, and they needed to raise some funds, and by gosh, we did. And I mean, that place was, the walls were just doing this, especially when Bobby D and then when Kowalski actually put his hands on Bobby's son.
That was a mistake.
That was a mistake. But again, thanks to the Little Devils. We really appreciate that. And again, if they want us to come back and help them, and that's kind of what I like what SICW does too. We're not out beating on the doors. We're not out renting buildings and saying, hey, we want to put a show on here. We want these nonprofit organizations that need help to call us, and then let us tell you if we can help you. If we think we can, we're going to sit there and tell you, if you do A, B, and C, then the rest will fall in place. Sandoval is a prime example of that. Fairmont City, Millstadt, we've helped them out several years. Cahokia. We're the ones that advertise. If your organization wants a fundraiser, call us, give us a shot. The one thing we will tell you is, if we think we can help you. If we can't, we're not going to waste your time, because your time is our time.
And you got a big show coming up this year of one that you're going to for, to help them out, and that's, you're one of the Shriners in May. I'm sorry, in March.
In March. And Shriners, March 25th, will be at the Temple in East St. Louis, Illinois. What a beautiful building that is. Working with the members there. They've got a great committee put together. They're already promoting it, already signed for that. Mr. USA Tony Atlas will be joining us, along with Cowboy Bob Orton Jr. And I guarantee you, all of the SICW locker room is going to be there, because if you've never been in the Temple there for the Shriners, stadium seating, great venue. It's going to be a great show. Show start at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. They'll have plenty of concessions, and it's going to be great, I can tell you. I grew up right down the street from there in the housing projects. Was born there in the Gomper homes, and they used to have wrestling at the social center. That's where I first met the likes of Cowboy Bob Ellis. Pat O'Connor was there, and I could throw a rock from where we lived at to where the Temple is. So a lot of wrestling history right there in East St. Louis.
Well, 2023 is shaping up to be a great year. And the last thing we need to talk about here as we round out 2022 is how December ended. It's really setting up what we've talked a little bit about coming up here January 14th. But we saw Flash Flanagan taking on Axe Allward, who produced a mysterious golden spike.
Well, we talked about Flash a little bit ago. What a great individual Flash Flanagan is. What a tough individual Flash Flanagan is. And Flash has had some of the toughest matches. I've seen him get thrown off of, balconies, land on concrete floors in gymnasiums in Puerto Rico and wherever he would be wrestling at. Never backs down from a fight. And that's what I said earlier on. I'm a little concerned about this, the diabolical, mysterious Kevin Sullivan. For whatever reason, he has chosen to have something to axe to grind with, and not using the word axe, because at first there was that letter left.
Yeah, they thought it was
axe.
Axe.
Thought it was axe, but I'm baffled by it. Flash, I've had conversations with him because, as you said, he was able to get out of Axel, who was behind this, and lo and behold, Kevin Sullivan and the new Purple Haze, Andrew Anderson, have made it clear. They sent a promo to us and said, air this. We want Flash to see this. And they're coming for Flash Flanagan on January the 14th. But I've known Kevin Sullivan a long time. In fact, he's out in Vegas with us when we're there, and he is a tough cookie. Great mind for the business, but I'm going to tell you, Flash Flanagan will stand up against anybody. And if Andrew Anderson thinks that he's going to have a cakewalk that night, he doesn't know Flash Flanagan.
Well, Herb, you talk about one last match from 2023 that just came this close. The Big Texan nearly defeating Attila Khan for that SICW Classic Championship, and he did defeat him via disqualification, unfortunately, so the belt didn't change hands. But that's what led up to this great 6-man tag event coming up here on January 14th.
Well, first of all, we'll get a shot of our good friend here, Bruiser, our 4-legged puppy dog. We have Bruiser and Brody. Brody's running around somewhere. But, have you ever seen a lariat other than Stan Hansen, our good friend, I think invented the lariat, but I think the Big Texan sometime or other went to the Stan Hansen School of Lariat, because I'm going to tell you, I would not want to be on the receiving end of that lariat. But, Attila Khan, again, when you put the likes in, and stop and look at the size of the men in that locker room, and then when you look at the Texan and you look at the Attila Khan, it was a match that I was worried about. And like I said, I don't think we've heard the end of it. The 6-man tag elimination match on January 14th is going to tell us how this is going to play out. Devastation Incorporated, Stephen E. He's another one. So it may be a 6-man tag elimination, but with him there, now the odds are where.
Oh, I tell you what, it's going to be an interesting time. Herb, we're out of time tonight. We've talked about all the great things that happened in 2022, everything that's going to happen coming up here in 2023, and the list is just going to keep growing. It's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And, we talk about things getting bigger, but as we close out tonight, you thought it would be interesting to show the fans some of the little things that become a part of the SICW collection. So, folks, from me, a very happy New Year, 2023. Herb, I'm going to give you the last word, and make sure you tell them what we're going to take a peek at as we close out here tonight.
Well, as Brian said, 2022 was great. We kind of just took you back a little bit in time, like we like to do, and we hope you enjoyed it, and hope it kind of triggered some of the thoughts. If maybe you're tuning in for the first time tonight, and we've heard about SICW, but we haven't ever checked them out, and you have tonight. It's just kind of a sample of what you missed, and you don't want to miss 2023. But this 2022, I started a little collection of some little figures that for my personal collection, and I have quite a bit of collection of wrestling memorabilia, and I just thought it would be great to start adding some of our local guys in our locker room. So periodically, I've got a good friend that manufactures these for me, and so we've got them for you now. But as Brian said, Happy New Year to each and every one of you. I hope everybody stays healthy and safe, and if you can ever make it out to an SICW event, we're going to be going back to Belleville here in the very, very near future. We actually signed that contract back in August, and so hopefully things have got worked out with that building, and so we'll be back there. But we're going to be on the road. So again, Happy New Year's to everybody, and take a look at a little bit more being added to the SICW collection. Good night.